Imagine a secret so profound, so terrifying, that it was held captive for 8 decades. A truth whispered only to the shadows, locked away in the heart of a woman who witnessed history from its most chilling vantage point. Today, at 80 years old, Ava is finally ready to speak. Her hands, gnarled by time, once meticulously arranged the uniforms, polished the silverware, and cleaned the private chambers of Adolf Hitler himself. What she saw, what she heard, and the silent horrors she endured within the inner sanctum of the Third Reich will leave you breathless. This isn't just history. It's a raw, unfiltered journey into the heart of darkness through the eyes of someone who was there. Ava's story begins not in a grand political arena, but in the humble desperation of 1930s Germany. A young woman, barely out of her teens, facing economic hardship like so many others, she answered an advertisement for domestic help. Little did she know that advertisement would lead her to the Berghof, Hitler's notorious mountain retreat, and later the Chancellery in Berlin. She wasn't a spy, not a political operative. She was a maid, a silent observer in the world that would soon plunge into unimaginable chaos. Her duties were mundane: cleaning, serving meals, ensuring the dictator's private spaces were immaculate. Yet within these mundane tasks lay an extraordinary burden. She moved through rooms where the fate of millions was decided, her ears inadvertently privy to the hushed conversations, the sudden outbursts, the chilling silences. Ava remembers the first time she truly saw him, not as the roaring orator on newsreels, but as a man, up close. He was smaller than she expected. His eyes, though piercing, often seemed distant, almost lost. She recalls the peculiar ritual of his meals, often vegetarian, eaten quickly, almost distractedly. The air around him was always tense, a palpable pressure that made even the most seasoned staff walk on eggshells. One particular memory stands out: a night when a furious argument erupted in an adjoining room. Ava was cleaning the main hall, trying to appear invisible, when a vase shattered against a wall. The shouting was unintelligible, but the sheer force of the rage resonated through the thick walls. Later, she saw the grim faces of the higher-ranking officers, their uniforms impeccably pressed, but their eyes betraying a profound fear. It was then she realized that the terror wasn't just for the outside world. It permeated every corner of Hitler's personal domain. Ava recounts the strange blend of banality and terror that characterized daily life. The meticulous planning of his dog, Blondie's, daily walks, juxtaposed with casual remarks about the Jewish problem. The elegant dinner parties where guests would laugh and drink, only for the conversation to suddenly pivot to the purity of the Aryan race, delivered with a chilling conviction that silenced all dissent. She saw the moments of paranoia, the way Hitler would sometimes pace his study for hours, muttering to himself, or suddenly demand that all curtains be drawn, convinced he was being watched. He rarely made eye contact with the staff, treating them more like furniture than human beings, yet his presence was overwhelming, a suffocating weight in every room he occupied. The atmosphere was one of absolute obedience, enforced not just by strict rules, but by an unspoken, omnipresent dread. No one dared to question, no one dared to speak out of turn. Ava learned to anticipate, to observe without being seen, to move like a ghost through the corridors of power. She witnessed the growing influence of figures like Heinrich Himmler and Joseph Goebbels, their visits bringing an even darker, more sinister energy to the already oppressive environment. She remembers a specific incident involving a young kitchen assistant, Hudson, who accidentally spilled wine on a guest's uniform during a formal dinner. The swift, brutal reprimand, not from the guest, but from a high-ranking SS officer, left Hudson trembling and pale for days. It was a stark reminder of the absolute power and the casual cruelty that pervaded their lives. As the war raged on, the mood inside the chancellery grew increasingly frantic. Eva describes the growing pallor on Hitler's face, the trembling in his hands that became more noticeable. The opulent rooms, once filled with a strange, forced gaiety, now echoed with the sounds of distant bombings and hushed, urgent conversations. She watched as the regime, once seemingly invincible, began to crumble, mirroring the growing cracks in the dictator's own psyche. The final days in the bunker are a blur of fear and chaos for Eva. The constant rumble of artillery, the smell of smoke, the desperation in everyone's eyes. She remembers the chilling silence that fell after news of Hitler's final act. The relief mixed with a profound, disorienting emptiness, as if the very air had been sucked out of the world. Escaping the collapsing city was a harrowing experience. Eva, like so many others, just wanted to survive, to forget. She carried her secrets, not in a diary, but in the deepest recesses of her mind, a heavy burden that she believed she would take to her grave. For 80 years she lived a quiet life, raising a family, working, trying to erase the indelible images of a past too monstrous to comprehend. She avoided documentaries, changed the channel at the mention of the war, determined to bury the memories. But the past, as it always does, found a way to resurface. The weight of her silence, the untold stories began to press down on her. She realized that her unique perspective, though painful, was a piece of history that deserved to be heard, not to glorify, but to bear witness, to show the human side of the monster, not to humanize him, but to illustrate the chilling banality that can exist alongside unimaginable evil. Her revelations aren't about grand strategic blunders or political conspiracies. They're far more intimate, far more unsettling. Eva speaks of the dictator's strange obsession with certain paintings, his almost childlike tantrums when things didn't go his way, the absolute terror he inspired in those closest to him, even in moments of supposed relaxation. She describes how the fear was so pervasive, so deeply ingrained, that even a simple maid felt its suffocating grip every day. The most shocking truth, Eva says, is not what he did on the world stage, but how such a man could maintain an illusion of normalcy in his private life, surrounded by people too terrified to break the spell. She reveals the chilling way his charisma could turn to cold fury in an instant, how a quiet moment could erupt into a terrifying tirade. Her story is a testament to the power of memory, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring importance of bearing witness. Eva's voice, once silenced by fear, now rings with the courage of a woman determined to ensure that the quiet horrors she observed are never forgotten. Her account doesn't just add to our understanding of history, it forces us to confront the uncomfortable truths about power, fear, and the human condition itself.